Well, hey, Life Science, hope you're doing well when you watch this video. So this video is to help you understand the owl pellet report and exactly what I'm looking for. Remember, it's a 75 point test grade out of 75 points. And again, mostly based on effort. So everybody should make an A, of course. So if you just show me good effort, good work, good thoughts, you'll be able to do great on this pellet report. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is the outline that I posted on Teams, also gave you in class, emailed out. So this is the general outline. First things first, I want you to be able to tell me um, a title. Okay, so let me just make like a new document here that you can see. And so if you click up here, you can make a title page if you know how to do that. If you don't, you just put a title up here, okay, as a header. I would center it. So how do you do all this? Well, let me show you. If I drag this down here, how do you center it? If you go to design, everybody has a Word document. So you have Word through your suite with the school, through your email. So you just center it and come up with a creative title, telling me exactly, what the purpose of this lab was. Just kind of by the title, I should understand what you're going to tell me about. So I wouldn't type anything like the awesome owls. That doesn't tell me exactly what we're doing. I'm looking for, something about owl pellets, dissection of owl pellets, something like that. So again, I'm not going to tell you the answers in this video per se. I'm going to give you direction because I want to see that you are thinking, okay? So the next part, introduction. So for every new section, so you see how introduction is a section, materials, data, which I'm going to explain in a second, and conclusion. For each section, I want you to go ahead and type like a little header, okay? So you do introduction, and then I want you to underline it, like so, okay? Also, right now, and I should have done this at the start, I want everything in Times New Roman. Times New Roman, where is it? There it is. 12 font, okay? I also want everything double spaced. So in the paragraph situation, if you go to paragraphs, that pops up, you go to double, don't add space, and that should double space everything. So when I hit enter, I've got my double spacing. Obviously, we need to take off the underline, and then you start typing owls, blah, blah, da, 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 blah, blah, blah. And then you can see that it keeps double spacing, okay? Every single time is double space, which is good, okay? So your introduction, what should your introduction tell me? It should tell me background information. So again, there should be multiple paragraphs in this introduction. Tell me about the genus and species of barn owls. That's classification, which we're learning about right now. Where are they found? Location and habitat. Location meaning like where on the planet. Habitat, do they live in warm places, cold places? Does it rain a lot? Think about climate when you think about habitat. Think about precipitation levels. How long do they live? So their average lifespan. What do they normally eat? So their diet. Okay, this is what we really are investigating with an owl pellet, what they were eating. How do they catch their prey? How do they hunt? Do they have keen eyesight? Do they have specific adaptations that allow them to catch certain prey really efficiently? And then a very large part of this should be, and this should be at least 3 to 5 sentences. Right here is how do they create a pellet? You need to explain the anatomy of their bodies and also the physiology about how do they create a pellet. Of course, they have a very different digestive system than we do. Not extremely different, but they do have a couple of adaptations that allow them to make pellets and to survive. And then the purpose, of course, when we do activities, we're doing them for a purpose. So tell me the purpose. The next section is materials. Okay, so you would write a new section, underline it, and this is just a list. This is not a sentence. Remember, as I told you in class, the science isn't English. We're not looking for beautiful, adjective-filled language. Tell me the facts. Tell it to me quickly in a concise, well-organized way. Okay, I'm going to skip the data section for just 1 second and talk about conclusion. Then I'm going to go back to the data section because I'm going to adjust a few of these things. Finally, the conclusion. This is where you tell me this is where you take your thoughts further. You use critical thinking. You help me understand that you're able to take what we learn in this activity and translate that into further questions, into critical understanding, into conceptual understanding about other avenues in life, other arenas of life that we may not have directly talked about, but you can apply that knowledge to those areas. For example, what can we learn about the owl and its environment from studying pellets? What can we learn about the owl specifically and also its environment? So let's say barn owls are struggling in a certain area. Could they look at pellets and could they kind of determine why they're struggling, why their numbers are going down? That's something for you to think about. What are 3 questions that you have for further investigation? If we were to continue on down this path, what are some other questions that you could think about, that you could investigate using the scientific method, scientific inquiry, and build upon this introductory activity that we did with owl pellets? Letter C, what can we learn about the ecosystem? So ecosystem is the system including all living things and also their non-living environments, the weather, earth, sun, soil, etc. Ecosystems, very important. Ecology is the study of ecosystems or nature's house. What can we learn about the ecosystem by studying pellets? By looking at owls, what could we possibly learn about that? And then finally, what would happen? A lot of us had rodents and owl pellets. What would happen if the rodent population declined in the owl's region? How would the owl respond? Remember, living things respond, living things adapt. So what would happen? If their major food source is rodents, what would they do? And so this is for you to think about. Now, let me go to data. I'm going to change this up, and I decided to do this through the lab, so this was after I printed it, but I'm going to, we didn't do math or length or width, but we did do number of forelimbs and hind limbs. And so let me show you exactly what, and you also don't have to do this table, but I'm going to show you, this is also going to be on the mass line. So basically the data section, I need 2 things. I need a graph, and so let me show you what those 2 things are. I need 2 things. I need a graph showing mass and limb data, and then I need a table showing averages. And then let me show you exactly what I mean here. So you would need to do this through Excel. Remember, everybody has this through their school suite. You have the Microsoft Office suite, okay? So I just made some, fictitious data here, and we're looking down here. Okay, this was from another class, another year when we actually did length and width, but I think it's more important to do forelimbs and hind limbs for our purposes. We're observing, right? So this is just made up data. So I'm going to email out this data after every class is done with the activity. And you kind of set up like this in Excel, okay? And you kind of like bold it, underline it, and then you type out all the data. You'll have more data than this. But this is how you make a chart, okay? So I'm going to actually drag this down so you can see exactly what I'm doing here. Okay, so here's Excel. Here's all the different things. So you highlight it. And again, I'm not telling you specifically the best way to show this. You can give me different graphs, but your graphs have to make sense. In science, guys, graphs and data are telling a story. And so we need to make sure the story makes sense. So for example, you go up here, you highlight the data, the titles as well. You go up here to insert, and it gives you, which is kind of cool, it gives you recommended charts. So it pulls up and it's like data, blah, 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 this. But let me show you this. Let me just show you this, right? Does this graph make much sense? Does this make much sense? And hopefully you're seeing like, no, that doesn't really help me understand much at all. So we have to pick the right graph, okay? And so recommended charts helps you do that. But I'll just show you one example that I would probably choose since we're starting out in 7th grade. But if you go recommended charts, I probably would choose scatter, the scatter plot right here, because the scatter plot is showing 2 different data points. So let me show you what I mean. So you pull up the scatter plot, you can make it larger, which I would, choose to do so, and you can see that there's data over here. Okay, there's data over here and there's data down here. Okay, but what exactly is it showing me? Well, this is actually forelimbs. You can see how the 6 is forelimbs, and then 4.6 is mass. So they're plotting the mass to forelimb data. And so that is a good example. So a couple things about a graph in science that I'm looking for. First off, I'm looking for a good title. So if you click on this, I would click mass versus number of limbs. okay, because that's what we're showing in the title. The title has to tell me exactly what I'm looking for. Also, let me scoot this over a little bit inside the box. Also, you need to label the axes, the y-axis and the x-axis. So if you have axis titles, primary horizontal, you gotta make sure this is correct, but this is actually number of forelimbs and hind limbs. Oop. And then we also need a table, we need a primary vertical data point. And so this is mass in grams. You always label, if you tell me that, you always tell me what you label and measured it in. So we measured this in mass in grams. Okay. And so this is a decent, chart, like, because what it's showing is it's showing mass, so the number of hind limbs, and you can see that as the number of forelimbs increase, so does the mass. And you can do this, I'm not going to get into specifically what all this means right now, but you can actually add a trend line, and there's like some fancy equations that are above the scope of this course, but you can see that these trend lines, if you add a trend line right there, you can see that as we increase the number of forelimbs and hind limbs in the pellet, the mass also would increase, which makes sense. Okay, so you can add the trend line if you want to. It's a nice little visual aid about that. And so this is an example of a chart. Okay, a good graph. Okay, but you could do bar graph if you want to. Bar graph would work well as if you organize it correctly. Those graphs. So how do you insert this into the Word document? Because I've seen people like copy it, print it at the end, and that's not the best thing because we want the Word document to become like just one document with everything in it. So you copy it. You can copy it. So right click, copy, and then you go to your Pellet report, which is right here. So remember we have materials and we did the list, and then we're down to data. Okay. Remember everything's underlined. Okay. And then the data, and you can just paste it right here. You just paste it. And it's thinking, and boom, there it is. And I should really capitalize that L right there. There we go. That's better. And so it's right there inside of your chart, and that shows me what it is. A helpful tool to do, if you is to design format. You can kind of change it how it looks if you want. I would wrap the text though. I would wrap the text type through it, because that way you can kind of adjust the text. But let me show you. If you click down here, oop, oop. So a nice thing also in Word is that you can actually title this. So figure 1, and you can go into that and kind of describe for me what you're seeing. So I would underline that figure 1 and tell me graph. And I'm not going to tell you exactly how to describe this because I want to see you good, apply your knowledge. But graph, describe what you show me. The second thing that I want you to show me, guys, in this Pellet report, and I'm just going to delete this, is averages. So I would do average, if I can spell, average of limbs and mass average. Okay. And so what you do here, and you can adjust these to make them larger, is there's hundreds of formulas in Excel. Excel is an amazing document, but there's an average formula that makes the average for you. So if you type in average, open parentheses, you highlight all the data that you want to average, you close the parentheses, and there's your average, again, for this fictitious data that I made up. For mass average, you do the exact same. Average, open parentheses, highlight all the data, close the parentheses, and there you go. Okay, and so this is the second thing. I would bold it, underline it to make it look a little bit better. You can also center it if you want to. Sometimes centering looks better, which that does look better. So you center it. And so I would just copy this, copy, and then I would paste it right underneath the data. And so there's different paste options, but you can see there that there's the paste options. You can also, if you don't like how that looks, you can also just insert a table in Word. Let me show you how to do that real quick. If you insert right here, you can see table, and you can just kind of like insert a table and type in your data if you don't like how it looks. And I'll play around with how it looks and stuff. But that is that. And so after the data comes the conclusion. So you need to show me two things: the graph, which I just showed how to do, and the averages. Okay. And then yeah, so 75 point test grade, just email it to me. I would like for this to be typed. Email it to me if you have an issue with typing it. Just come talk to me. But until then, I hope this is helpful. Let me know if you have questions, guys. Hope you'll have a good rest of your day.